pledge allegiance, the invocation, a quick greet before the speaker speaks. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
John? Please remain standing for the invocation, and remain standing to greet people thereafter.
We can bow our heads. Jesus, as is written, where two or more of us are gathered together, your Spirit will be here with us. You're the ultimate power of all that is. And now we're in the last days, and it's written, many shall go to and fro. Knowledge shall increase. We ask a special blessing on the speakers this evening and those that hear the words. Let your truth come through to this crowd and realize that you are the power. Truth is light, and all the words they're going to hear this evening will bring light in a darkened world. We know that eventually we'll have 1,000 years of peace on this planet, and there will be no more wars. Help us all to look forward with hope in our hearts, looking for that day when you, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, and the God of all gods, come back to this planet. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please introduce yourself to two or more people that you haven't met before. Just say hi to them, shake their hands. Taxed enough already? Yes?
Yes.
All right, okay, so we're all taxed enough already. And we wanted to provide information that help you to reduce this problem and to minimize it. So, without further ado, what I'm going to ask is would you like your campaign manager to be introduced and introduce our speaker, Michelle MacDonald? Dede? Come on up, Dede.
All right.
Introduce your staff if you want to, and if this is your candidate.
I'm Dede Evavold.
Everybody?
Hi. I met Michelle MacDonald. I've been an advocate and an activist in the legal system. I met Michelle MacDonald that was helping Sam with her case. She went through family courts and has had a lot of her rights violated. Well, every right violated, put it that way.
Yep.
I met Michelle through that, and Michelle decided to run for Supreme Court Justice, which is the state Supreme Court, and she went to the convention, was endorsed by the Republican Party, and it was the power of the people getting her up on that stage because they were very resistive to even allowing Michelle to speak. And
Really?
yes, and so it was the delegates that got her up there, and it was powerful. And Michelle did a fabulous speech, which is on the back of your sheets, and it was just a new experience. I mean, neither one of us have been really involved in politics in the past, and I knew when she asked me to join this, we've been trying to get it out there about what's really going on in one aspect of our government, which is our court system, and I didn't hesitate. I was just like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I know Michelle, I've said to some people, I've met a lot of gold-plated and I've met solid gold, and Michelle is definitely solid gold. And so I'm proud to be her campaign manager, and I'm very proud of Michelle, and she also, the person she's representing tonight, that she's been very involved in, Sandra Grazzini-Rucki, is also here tonight. So Michelle is all about liberty, justice, and our freedoms, and protecting those. So thank you. Michelle?
All right, your time. And if you want to let us know if you want to eventually go over there for a DVD showing, we'll just turn our heads or walk on over it.
Thank you, Dede, for that introduction. She's always prepared to introduce me. I'm Michelle MacDonald, and I'm running for Minnesota Supreme Court Justice. As Dede said, it was a whirlwind the weekend of the Republican convention. I was no stranger to being a judge. I have been a small claims court judge for several years, up until 2014. I always thought to myself that only in America can you go from small claims court judge to the United States Supreme Court Justice, which has been one of my aspirations for a long, long time.
US or Minnesota?
United States Supreme
Wow.
Court Justice has been my aspiration. When I finished my small claims court term, and it was a term of many, many years, I was asked by a few people who I know now to be delegates, who I know now to be on various judicial committees. So I was scouted, if you will, to run for judge. They asked me which position I wanted to be in, and when I found out that there were 2 openings on the Minnesota Supreme Court, I quickly chose to run against Justice Lillyhawk. What I learned, and does anybody know Justice David Lillyhawk?
I do.
Corporate attorney?
I don't know him personally, but I know a lot about him.
I quickly learned that for many, many years, our right to vote for judges has been usurped. Any of you know that?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I had understood that it was a dual system. In fact, twice before I had applied and been asked to be appointed. Once was when Jesse Ventura was governor. I was asked by his attorney, who's actually in court with him this week, David Olson, to apply to be appointed as judge. And I did. There were 70 that applied that year, and I did get an interview, and it got down to 7. And then more recently, in 2011, I also made arrangements to apply for judge. So this has not been, it was not something that I took lightly. When I decided to run and apply and seek the Republican Party endorsement, I spent the entire weekend with Dede, who accompanied me at the Republican convention. And it was a whirlwind. I felt so comfortable with the people. I didn't know there were so many like-minded people out there. There are many, many like-minded people. And even Dede was just like, we were in a state of grace. We were just meeting so many people who seemed very much to know what was going on. At the same time, we felt the pushback from the Republican Party. We felt the pushback from the Greg Wurzel, who was, he wasn't the pushback, but he kept telling me that we need to be at a certain place at a certain time. They are going to, he said they, and let me tell you who they is. Because I've always used the word they.
Tell us who they are.
Here's who they are. Okay, they're cousin it. Okay. So, it was providing pushback, such that when we were on the schedule, I had an interview, and they videotaped the interview. There was an attorney, his name was Doug Seaton, right? And
Yes.
He was, Doug Seaton. He was the chairman of the committee that was interviewing me, the committee that wanted me to be your next Minnesota Supreme Court Justice. And he called an interview, and he researched me so thoroughly that he found a Minnesota violation of a watercraft registration
My.
in 2005.
Awful.
Okay.
The what?
So,
Evil too.
he brought it up.
Transfer.
You brought it up.
Transfer,
What's a watercraft? Oh,
And I should point out, I think Dede pointed out that Sandra Grazzini-Rucki is here. My husband, Tom Shimoda, is here, and I'm here to tell you it was his failure to register. So that wasn't even my problem. In any event, and the delegates certainly knew because they had actually asked me to file and be your Minnesota Supreme Court Justice, the issues I myself have been having with the courts, particularly with family courts. Okay. Here today is Sandra Grazzini-Rucki. Sandra, stand up. And I actually would like her to come up here because she, in her case, was an inspiration to me. Come up here for a moment. She's here. I cannot not have her come up. Hello.
You can make me talk now.
Okay. So, Sandra, I have an organization. It's a nonprofit called Family Innocence, and it's a nonprofit dedicated to keeping families out of court and resolving conflicts and injustices peacefully. My mantra has been, since I created Family Innocence, that we will have a social every first of the month, just like all of you gather here every month, until our mission is complete. And one of our missions is to eliminate court for families altogether. So, not knowing Sandra, she came to one of our socials. It was Dale who brought you, correct? I knew Dale very little, but I know him quite well at the moment. And he brought Sandra to our event, which at the time we were having at the Rosemont Carbonis. And Sandra walked in very, very scared and very alone and just really, but very strong, because she was inquiring of me, why are you having this event at Rosemont Carbonis? Because she had known her former husband had frequented Carbonis. So she was very untrusting of me and the system at that point. And at this point in time, I did not know why. And what Sandra told myself and my husband Tom is that on September 7th, earlier in the year, this was January 1st, 2012, she had a call from an attorney who told her to leave her home and abandon her 5 children by noon that day, or she would be placed under arrest and incarcerated. And Sandra is an airline stewardess, and she packed up her airline bag. She was told she cannot take any of her property, except she can take what she can fit in her airline bag. And at the time, she was working for
U.S.
Airways, which is now merged with American Airlines, and she still works for that company. In fact, she's been working for American Airlines, U.S. Air, for
Almost 30 years.
almost 30 years. So that's a stable employment, wouldn't you say?
They don't allow 8-year-olds to start.
Yeah.
She was 8 years old. In any event, she packed up her airline bag, as she had done on occasion, and left her children. It was the first week in school. And she dropped off her children, and she wasn't able to tell her children what was going on. And she left her home with her airline bag, and she has not been home since.
To this day? To this day.
To this day. What came down, pursuant to a phone call, by the way, so there was no service of papers. I think somebody here was saying, well, here's what you do when you serve papers. There was no service of papers. Is an order. It was dated on September 7th, signed by the judge on September 7th, and noticed on September 7th that on September 7th by noon that day, she would be have to vacate her home, abandon her 5 children, and have no contact with her children, in person or through third party, or she would be incarcerated. And their father was subject to that same order.
Is that judge still alive?
Yeah,
Well,
still on the bench.
Still on the bench. His name was Judge David Knudsen, by the way. So I did not believe Sandra. That's why she's such an inspiration to me. There had to be something that she did, that she said, but Sandra is a very strong example of what I would say purity. Okay. She was and still is an excellent mother. She worked for the airlines. She was very stable. They had been living in that home for some 14 years.
16 years.
She was already divorced, and she had cared for her children in that home for 14 years. At the time, the oldest was about 16, and the youngest was...
Yeah, I'd taken 15 years off work,
Yeah.
so I could stay home and raise the kids.
So this custody case, so to speak, was about a mother who had been in the same home all of those years, had raised her 5 children, had the same job, they had been in the same school systems, and they had also gone to the same churches all of those years. They all had the sacraments, and Sandra is Catholic, but I didn't know this at the time. So not believing her, I went to the courthouse. Well, I believed her, but I thought there must be more to it. And I spent 3 days, 3 separate days at the courthouse looking at her file. And I counted the number of orders that were in her file, other than the one I just told you about. And there were over 3,450 orders.
At that time. We have many more since.
There's been many more since.
Another 600 more.
So Sandra and her family were subject to order after order after order. And it probably is about 50 separate pieces of paper, including the one I told you about on September 7th. But if you go through and you count each order, that's how many orders there are. There are countless numbers of orders. But the last, yes.
Payoff.
Well, if you notice, the orders do not affect my ex-husband in any way. All the orders are against me, except for 3 out of those almost 4,000. So there's 3,995 orders against me, not against him.
But what I've tried to explain to Sandra, and I take issue with that, is this is not about Sandra versus her former husband. It's not about man versus woman or husband versus wife. It is about the judges being able to do this to people. In fact, what I have learned is they rely on us arguing with each other. They rely on the arguments, black versus white, no abortion versus pro-life, and that's how they keep us kind of fighting with each other instead of really looking to the real source of the conflict, which is the oppression that we're all under each and every day. So fast forward to, so Sandra was homeless at the time. Fast forward to, I guess, today, September, about a year later, September 11th, 2013. You all know what happened on September 11th. In 2001, was it? Yeah. 2001. So fast forward to September 11th, 2013. I and Sandra and many others prepared and filed a federal class action civil rights lawsuit for families here in Minnesota at the U.S. Federal Court of Appeal. So to me, it was a special day. It was a well-researched complaint, a 1983 and a 1985 action. 1983 is civil rights. 1985 is more the conspiracy theory. And what I did was, and I think a snake is one of your, I saw that on one of your sheets, there's a snake. What we went to California in August. Dede was with us, and so was Sandra. And what we did was, we decided that we were going to start by suing the Judge David L. Knudsen individually, as an individual. And that's where we started. So Sandra and her 5 children sued Judge David Knudsen individually. And then we added, it was for her family and on behalf of all those similarly situated.
Yes. Who started this whole thing? The judge decided on his own to make this papers up, or what?
Is it about money and keeping a job?
Had to be payroll.
So somebody's saying payoff, somebody's saying money about keeping a job, somebody's saying the judge just decided to do this whole thing. So what we did was file it, and when I went into court, it was September 11th was also the day when Sandra had filed to get the custody rights to her children back. So that was her court trial day.
Because
Okay.
up to that point, they would deny me all contact. I was not allowed any contact with my children. My ex-husband, maybe you don't like to hear this, it was allowed, but I was denied.
And it was a temporary
And it was
order.
both supposed to be a temporary order. I didn't know when they threw me out if I was going for an hour. I mean,
I'm going to correct her on that. What happened was the no contact order continued. There was a no contact order, but Sandra's understanding was that it was arbitrarily applied. In other words, it applied to her, but her former husband was allowed to see the children. In fact, the order allowed him to go to her house that she owned and kind of fix it up or something like that. But on September 11th, I filed this civil rights action in federal court, and I walked into the courthouse with Sandra on September 11th, and there was a packed courtroom. We had the media there, and when Judge Knudsen came on the bench, I
He was
asked him.
also the judge now?
He was the judge.
he signed himself solely to my case, and regardless of what county anything happened, and he was the only judge that was going to be on.
Conflict of interest.
Me and my ex-husband.
Cover up.
The same judge, yes. In fact, he had an order that said any cases involving Sandra Grazzini-Rucki or David Rucki that he was going to take.
Regardless, civil, criminal, regardless what county, goes only in front of him.
In fact, after the events I'm going to tell you about, Sandra had a pending stalking civil case in Scott County. And that I attended on Monday after this trial that we had. I'll call it a perfunctory trial. It wasn't a real trial. In any event, so I asked Judge David Knudsen, yes, the same judge that had violated her with that order of September 7th, a year later on September 11th, to remove himself from the case and restore this family and restore the property. And he denied me, and he's asked me, I believe, if I wanted to be in default, and I said no, and I put Sandra on the stand. And Sandra testified to many of the things I told you about, all of her care of her children up until that tragic day of September 7th, and she testified to what happened on September 7th. That was trial day one, September 11th. Trial day 2, Sandra and I came to the courthouse, and we had looked on the court website, and the court was canceled. It said canceled. So when Sandra and I came to the courthouse that day, we saw that it was still on the calendar. And Sandra was treated very differently.
They made me take off my shirt.
They made her take off her shirt.
In security and walk through my bra.
Nice.
And it was at Hastings, you have to go through actual security, and I had a jacket on, and I said, I don't have anything underneath it, and they said, well, we believe you do, so take it off. So they made me take off my jacket.
So in any event, yes, this is true. So I had just filed a federal class action civil rights family liberties lawsuit the day before.
Good for you.
And so in I was on that track at this point. So when Sandra and I entered the courthouse, I happened to have my husband's camera in my, because we had been on a vacation, my husband's camera in my pocketbook. So I thought we might take some pictures. And the first thing I did was go up to the clerk's office, and I asked to take a picture of the calendar because it was showing that the court trial was still on.
No, first took a picture of me going through in my bra. Yeah, that was the first one.
And there should be security video that I subpoenaed the phone, we can still have not received, that will show us going through, her going through in her bra and whatnot. In any event, when I went to the clerk's office and asked to take the picture, I recall them saying, no, you can't take a picture of the calendar. And then they came, I said, well, I want to take a picture of this. And then they came back and they said, okay, we changed the policy. You can take the picture. So I took the picture of the calendar showing that was on. And also in Dakota County, you need to realize there are some very large screens. So I proceeded to take some pictures of the large screens. And I took a picture of Sandra. I had her take off her jacket again in a little bit more private setting with the security behind her so that we could show the difference in treatment that she was receiving at the courthouse. So again, I was on the collect evidence of the, and I had been on it since the beginning of the injustices track. And Sandra, the trial still was not starting, so Sandra said, take a picture of the clock. So we took a picture of the clock. And eventually, we ended up in the courthouse before Judge David Knudsen, and he came on the bench. And he said, I said to him again, I said, I just filed a lawsuit against you yesterday. I said, could you please restore this family, restore her property, and remove yourself from this case? And he said, no. He said, might have said again, do you want to be in default? And I said no. And I also made what's called a motion for a directed verdict, because I had already presented Sandra's case of pretty much perfect motherhood. I have to say it was probably one of the best custody cases as a family law attorney I could have. And he denied us that. In fact, he denied almost every single piece of evidence that Sandra wanted to bring into the case.
He denied everything.
Is that any surprise?
In fact, Sandra I was representing at no pay all of this time, and she was homeless. So many, many hours of time and effort. And he actually, when I had, earlier, I had subpoenaed her former attorneys. Her former attorneys, who got her to the point of that September 7th order, had been paid at a minimum about $200,000. Okay. So she was homeless, penniless,
No car, no clothing.
no car,
nothing.
no home, no clothing.
No
At the time.
children.
No children.
Who's taking care of the children? For the-
Oh, wait till you.
Well, yeah, and that, she really has no knowledge of that. We're only speculating, but we did hear in the trial what happened that day. And it will all be made public very, very soon. But what happened that day is the children went to the police station because they came home and their mother was not there. And so they were not told anything. And we're in fact, you know, I could say who has my children right now. I really don't know.
They told the police
but-
why they didn't. My ex-husband had quite a few issues, domestic violence. He's a very violent man. My neighbors had restraining orders on him. I had orders for protection. The children had orders for protection. So when they went to the police, they made it very clear they did not want to go to him. And they had all the reports on him. There was 19 police reports for domestic violence on my ex-husband, on me and my children. So they made it very clear why they didn't want to go to him.
Do you still not have, are you still not seeing your kids?
I still have not seen my children.
The order still stands. So we're, you know, it's a longer story, but let me, and I'm going to play a video that demonstrates who Sandra is because on another matter, right after September 11th, she became an advocate for one of my other clients who had a wrong done to her and came to court with me with that client. So I
Tell them what happened
acknowledge her for
September
that.
12th.
So September
It's the 12th. Speed it up.
Okay, so September 12th.
We go
So,
into court.
We go into court, and at one point, and this has been made public just this past week on Lions News, we go into court, and I am cross-examining the guardian in the case. So I'm in a full-blown trial, cross-examining guardian. I have boxes, I have my client beside me, and there's a courtroom full of people, including the media. And
The guardian's there with her attorney, who's objecting to every question that Michelle's asking the guardian. Why the guardian has an attorney, we don't know.
How
a
come the
paid
media- How come the
attorney.
media was there?
The media was there because the day before I had filed the class
Because my
action
children
civil
were
rights
wrong.
lawsuit.
2 of my children are missing. They were put into the custody of his sister. And ever since then, that was April of 2013. Within a short time of it being in their custody, the children disappeared. And they haven't been seen since.
That's another aspect of this too. That's another plate we're spinning, so to speak, is that prior to this trial, I also told the judge that 2 of the children don't even exist. So why are we having a custody trial over children that are missing? Why aren't we out looking for the children that are missing? So 3 of the children were still available for somebody's custody, whether that be father or mother. And so there was a certain moment in time when, and I'll invite your questions afterwards. It's a long story, and I try to shorten it. This is like a short version of a very long story.
So you got arrested on the 12th, so we went to court.
Well, on the 12th, what happened was I ended up taking a break. No, the judge gave me a break to get an exhibit that I needed. So he said, good time to take our morning break.
40 minutes into the trial. We'd only been there for 40 minutes, and he said, let's take a break.
And Dede was there, and he saw me kind of looking for a calendar because I was going back to 2011, you know. And he got up and he left the bench. And you'll see on the video, 2 deputies came over and started talking to us, and then
No, 2 grabbed you, 1 grabbed me, and they hauled my attorney away.
they hauled me away.
Or?
The deputies.
Was the camera on? How can they do that?
They allegedly for taking a photograph, and this was found
The
later.
judge orchestrated it, we found out.
We found out the judge orchestrated it.
Orchestrated this whole,
So there's a lot of aspects to this, and that's always the question for what? No legitimate reason. What happened was when I was taken in the back, they kept asking me my name, and I said, you know my name, I was just in the courthouse. So you know the name game, right? And I didn't know the name game. I was kind of somewhat innocent about it because I thought, they said, give me your name and address, and I said, well, I was just in the courtroom with you, you know my name. And then they said, basically, I started crying for my husband, Tom, and I was just stunned, and they said, that's it, and they had me take off all of my jewelry.
Who did they?
I mean,
No, I mean, who
the
did?
deputies in Dakota County.
Oh, okay,
deputies,
okay.
yes. The swarms of deputies.
And there's-
Because that's what I mean by it. I'm saying they, and that's a good question.
They're not really
Now we
deputies.
know there was an officer
right.
named Gonder,
They're corrupt.
there was an officer named Christopher Melton, there was an officer named, you know, I have
Roger
many of them. I
Blunder?
was handled by dozens of officers and through the night.
They're trying to keep.
So she's back in the back room, me, Dede, and the other party, and everybody else was out in the hallway. They walk out and tell us, your attorney's been arrested, booked, charged, she's in jail, your trial's over, go home. So, well, what would you do? So you go home, so me and Dede and our other friend, we took the files and we left. Well, then we find out later
Okay.
We're assuming everybody's leaving because we're told to go.
Mm-hmm.
Then we found out it was to get, well, actually, your husband figured it out.
Go ahead.
They wanted
Well,
to go,
so
they
as
could stay
I'm
with the
being
case.
arrested,
Yeah,
and
they
you can
got-
look at
yeah.
Wyand's News, they
And
They
got a
proceeded with
hold.
the case with you in absentia.
Yeah, so they told us to go home, and then all of a sudden we found out,
You didn't know you were supposed to stay. Yeah.
no, they told us to
I
leave.
know that, but I'm saying it's, yeah, telling you, you could say, no, you do not have a court order to remove me, I'm under the case. But you didn't know that, so because your attorney was gone,
Yeah, they said she was in
Yeah,
jail and it was over.
I know
and
that.
We're like, what do we do?
You left without
And then they
understanding
continued.
of your right.
We can second guess what everybody did.
But that's what they did.
It's tough.
They wanted
I would, we
We
can
didn't
second
know.
guess that she should have stayed there and I should have come out in the handcuffs and still represented her, but that isn't what she was told and that isn't what she did.
When you filed this case with yourself and others, right? When you filed this case?
This case is just her custody case.
But how'd you file it with others then too? How'd you say that?
I filed it as a class action, so it was with all others similarly situated. All other families that have lost their liberty rights with their children or
Yes.
their property to one degree
Is-
or another.
Have you found that there's been any other cases like this with the judge?
Many.
Many.
With this judge?
Oh, with
Oh,
that
with
judge.
Knutson,
Scott
he's
County.
had, you met somebody? You had a woman call you after the Fox 9? Yes, there has been, never to the degree that he's done in my situation, but he has done bad things.
Yeah, we
He's
smell
still
a
a
rat,
judge?
don't we?
So do you want me to stop
And he's
right here
still
because
sealed to my case,
I,
whether I get a speeding
you want me to
ticket
stop right here
in
because
Carver or doesn't matter.
I'm not ready to stop right here because it's
sorry.
kind of one of those things that, what you need to know is that
Talk about the.
I have a unique distinction of being the only attorney in the history of the United States that has been made to finish a trial in handcuffs, a wheelchair with no glasses,
Waist
no
trainer.
shoes,
You had a
a
waist
waist belt,
With a judge that should
sitting
be recused
with
himself.
no client, no files, no pen, no paper, and no client.
And being handcuffed with a judge
And under arrest.
should be recused.
I got an idea that'll help you after.
Okay, thank you.
So wait till they tell him after they made her do the trial. Go ahead.
So in any event, they tell her to leave, and they wheel me back to complete the trial in that condition. I came back, and the judge was not on the bench, and he came on the bench, and he said, something must have happened during the break.
Imagine that.
Now, we found out later he orchestrated the entire event. And he said, I can see that your client's gone, all of your files are gone, all of your supporters are gone. He said, I suppose you could call and get them all back here. And I said, Your Honor, they took my cell phone. And he said, well, you know, this is an important trial, so we have to keep on going. He said, do you want to be in default? And I said, no. And we proceeded with me in that manner.
You know what I would have done? I would have coughed and got sicker than a dog and had to stop it.
Well, it's deeper than that. Because I was under arrest, and even if it was for legitimate purposes, you do not have an attorney in that condition finish up a trial without her client there. I had my complete liberties taken away, so I could have coughed, I could have stood up and screamed. It's called a peaceful protest, okay? I'm learning now. It's a peaceful protest, because the more I protested, they might have let me go and had the trial and called, or whatever they would have done. It would not have taken away the humiliation that I felt at that very moment.
Where's this case now?
Okay.
Well, after she finished the trial, they then rolled her back and locked her up for 36 hours. While she was in jail, my ex-husband's attorney issued a request for a warrant for my arrest on that Friday because I'm homeless. Because I was unable to reveal the location where my husband could find me, same man that threatened to kill me. And that was the reason, because I was homeless. So she's in jail. She's got a harassment restraining order in Scott County against my husband for coming after me at a friend's house she gets out of jail, she finds out he's got a warrant for me. Am I explaining?
Yeah, and the case goes on, and you ask where it is right now today.
November 10th?
Today, and so maybe I do have to stop. I just wanted to get that piece in, that I have the unique distinction of being the only attorney in the history of the United States, possibly the world, to have been made to complete a trial while under arrest.
And
Okay.
in a waist chain.
And I have, they kept me a night over jail. I was tortured in jail.
Oh,
How?
They broke pre-authorizations.
I was tortured, and that I listed all out. I do not want to explain it. Well, if you want to know exactly how, I was handled by many, many men. I thought when I first got there that I'd just be able to rest. They froze the room. They kept the lights on. They took my toilet paper. I had to push the medical button over 50 times. They kept the window open after they took my toilet paper so they could watch me go to the bathroom. They, over and over and over again, I was crying, I was still in my clothes, I was freezing, I wrapped my head in toilet paper, I wrapped my feet in toilet paper. They took my nylons because they thought they were going to kill myself. When I heard sirens going off that other people were going to kill themselves. See, when you ask a question like that, it's a loaded question. I could go on and on for probably a couple of hours about the torture I endured for 36 hours. Okay, piece by piece by piece. They would not let me have a phone call unless I was booked. They wanted me to sign papers for my $25 a night stay. I said, I'm not staying here. They wanted me to sign medical releases. I said, I'm not at a hospital. They wanted me to sign, there was one other thing.
They want your insurance card.
They wanted my phone card so I could make a phone call. And I said, I have a cell phone.
Is this at the Scott County Jail?
It wasn't at the Scott, but Scott's just as bad.
Dakota.
At Dakota County, Hastings.
How did you get bailed out?
Hastings jail. No, I was not charged with anything, so there was no way to
After a
bail me
certain amount of
out.
hours,
I was
you're
not booked, I was not charged. Here's what happened, and I'm trying to end it, sorry. Here's what happened. The very next day, when I was finally released, and again, there were sirens going off because people were committing suicide in jail. And at one point, I was told by a female deputy that she had found a dead person in a cell. At another point, I thought maybe if I say I'm going to commit suicide, maybe they'd treat me a little better. But instead, what they told me was, we're going to strip you naked. They said, we're going to put you in a padded suit, and we're going to put you in a different cell. And they said, now do you think you want to commit suicide? And I said, no, I guess I'll just stay here in these treacherous conditions. But actually, I started to think about maybe the jacket would be a little bit warmer. In any event, the very next day, I went to a judge, and the judge gave me release papers. And I have all of this on security video that I have tried to, I did subpoena, but it hasn't been released. They won't release it. And it's my video. James Backstrom.
The District Attorney of Dakota County will not release it.
So, in any event, when I was finally, I had my release order. And again, no charges, no booking. Okay, so there was no bail, there was no phone call. I could not even get a phone call unless I was booked. I was wheeled back in my handcuffs still and they let me out of the handcuffs, and I was standing there free. And I was waiting, and I was waiting, and I was waiting. And a sheriff's deputy came up to me after a long while and said to me, you know, right this way. We just want you to get booked. And I said, they said, it'll only take a couple minutes. I said, you were just in the courthouse with me. I booked for what? I said, booked for what? And he said, he left again, and he comes back again, and he says, you know, the county attorney is going to be filing some motion papers to book you, to charge you. So why don't you come this way and save us a little bit of trouble and come be booked? And I said, booked for what? I said, you were just in there. I said, they have 30 days to charge me with something. And he said, okay, we're going back in the cell for 30 days. And they took me back to the cell, and I sat in there, resigned to be in there for another 30 days. And I had my release order.
30 days?
Yeah, 30 days. And I had my release order in my hand. Now, apparently, he wasn't a deputy, he was a security officer named Chris, came to get me, and he said, "You're released now." And I said, "Chris, I have the release order right in my hand." And he came and he brought me to get my bags, and I came out, and they had told my husband and some other people that I was at a different door. It was late in the day, the media had left, obviously. They waited till the media left. And I ended up coming out to near strangers. Dale Nathan was there. He's somebody that I knew, and a few other people that I recognized that were there. And so that was my story. And then right away, since then I've been under siege, basically. I call it under siege with her case, because that Monday I had to go to her hearing in Scott County. You mentioned Scott County.
And I couldn't go.
I couldn't have her go because while I was in jail, the judge, and he still has it sitting in his file, and he's still the judge on her case, by the way, has it sitting in his file that was a civil warrant for her arrest for not revealing her address on the stand the day before.
So it's been sitting there approximately.
It hasn't been
a year.
signed by him, but strategically, the opposing attorney put it in there, and it's still in that file. He hasn't denied it, he hasn't, so that is just sitting there anytime we have to go into court.
Who's the opposing attorney?
The opposing attorney was
Lisa
Elliott, and then the attorney
Located
for...
in Richfield,
yeah.
166 in Penn.
Yeah. The attorney for the, what are you advertising for?
No, I just...
Yeah, located in Richfield.
We've served her so many times.
Yeah, anybody who wants to really persecute somebody, or, wants to help her lose her license, which
I got an
is
idea.
bound to happen. You got ideas? Thank you.
It'll work.
I need all the ideas. So,
Where we are now.
in any event, where we are now is that the federal civil class action is still pending. It did get dismissed based on judicial immunities, by the way. So even though we sued him individually, they dismissed it, but we're appealing that decision. That's where we sit now. We sit at...
My ex-husband was given sole and legal custody. I've been terminated my parental rights with not even an allegation, no.
You had no speaking up.
I did nothing, they've got no crimes. And as soon as he was given custody in November of 2013, approximately in the next couple months, he put the children into foster care. So 2 are on the run, 2 are in foster care, which they refuse to reveal where the foster care is, and the state's paying for them. So 4 of mine are missing and 1 just aged out.
So yeah, it's a long story, and what somebody pointed out that really helps us sort things together is, did you ever see somebody spin plates? So it's a spinning plate. So right now I'm spinning the plate to be your next Minnesota Supreme Court Justice.
There you go.
Go, go.
Cases like yours, I heard is where the husband had so much money, he could pay the judges off.
We had a multi-million-dollar trucking company. Yes, we had a multi-million-dollar trucking company. We're the largest truck brokers in the state. We run all the dump trucks, belly dumps, side dumps, basically just locally in the state, and then in the wintertime, we run them from Phoenix up to Minneapolis. I think everybody's
So it all involves payoffs.
So when they took me out of everything, they also took my portion of the company. So I was, our company was solely given to my ex-husband.
But I'm going to speak up and say they don't need their bribes paid. They're paid by the federal government through the courts. There is grant funding through the Department of Human Services, Department of Justice, where they get paid. And so they get extra
Yes.
money. That's
So they get
just
even extra
cash on
money.
the side.
So basically what our courts are doing, and they're doing it
Getting paid.
very like business as usual, is
what
they're
I said.
regularly depriving families of their children and their property.
If you have money, you
And their
really
money.
get deprived.
If you
Because
have money-
judges are being bought off.
Is there 2 cases going on here?
There's several cases going
You mean,
on. Several plates.
it's all one, it's all combined, it's all
Where's
based
Judge
off.
Knutson in all this?
He's the head of the snake. He's responsible for every single court order that's ever been issued.
In Dakota County.
In Dakota County, for what happened to her.
County. Is he a county judge?
County judge, yes.
District court judge.
He won't do very long, I promise you.
Isn't there?
Yeah, district
I don't
court,
know
he
the
can
court
do
system.
Oh, we've been to the Chief Justice Conkle, we've been to Messerec, we've been to the Board of Professional Standards.
Board of
And
Judicial Standards, he's
Judge
on.
Knutson himself has said, you just go ahead, you go to the board, because I'm on it.
Find out,
Go ahead and
what-
complain, I'm on it. And we have complained 15 times.
find out what church they go to.
We already know Hosanna
Good,
is.
then I got ideas for you.
We've already picketed, we've done it all.
Well, we'll see.
Is there a DVD you want to show us on that?
You haven't.
I want to show the Lion News.
I want to
Do you have
show
access to
Lion
that? To online?
Carrie, we have access online?
Yeah. Okay.
Dede has a question.
Okay, that's about 17 minutes, are we wanting
We
to
can
see?
just
Do the short version.
Yeah, the one he posted. that-
There's two, there's a 7-minute and a 17.
Before we do the Lion News, I wanted to do one other video, is that okay?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this happened all on September 11th, 12th. On October 1st, baby Liberty was born, and this is the baby that Sandra was the advocate for. I spent a weekend at the hospital, and baby Liberty's mother was violently taken away from her the weekend I was at the hospital by sheriff's deputies for no reason, and I have it all on film.
Does she have money? The girl that ran
No, the girls.
This was after I filed a federal lawsuit against the hospital. She had just given birth, so here's that.
I wanted to show Lion News.
Another county, not even close to where
This is what it may be even worse. I don't support, I support it. Things we get
This is terrible. One of thousands of cases.
This is
Amazing that this happens here. I mean,
Oh, no, I didn't.
you know, they always say
Hey,
they hate
the block road to the
Yes, so why wouldn't he just say, okay, I'm gonna be sued, I'm gonna get off this case?
Yeah,
Said he just put his-
recuse himself.
I want to see the second one.
I don't find it, I don't find it important.
We went to the Lion News.
Guys will arrest me there.
I'm sorry. I'll be on.
Yes, you did,
Peggy,
yeah.
Peggy, pass it Tom, Melissa's husband, his contact information, write it down, the toll free. Email and toll free number, write it down.
Mine?
No, the number of the yellow there, write it down so you can order your own cab.
Oh, okay.
They're free.
Okay.
You can glance inside some of the stuff that's available, materials.
Okay.
Give it back to me when you write down the number.
See, my children testified against this gentleman. I mean, he testified about everything, and that's what I want.
Tom, do you have a pen and paper?
I don't have a pen.
Peggy, pen?
I can get this pen over
Right here. Oh, on your paper, there's paper behind you. Is that yours?
Yeah, that's mine.
Okay, write down the toll free number.
I'm going down there.
Toolsforfreedom.com. Another resource.
Mine was so-called
All right, folks, if you wheedle over down this end, I guess there's a couple DVDs to see. You got the toll free number in the back?
Yep.
And I can give you the link to the other one. I've seen you before.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of art.
Wasn't it something I said, they said there was no case they challenged him, and I said, I just think that the judges
And my capacity
he didn't want to share the money.
That's fine. I think that's, you might want to write that down.
Regardless of where that.
Well, let me put it.
They're all at least.
What's
that?
That's mine.
Oh, this is yours.
I want you to write the toll free number so you
You
get.
don't go, another one gets started. I need water.
This is a simple thing. I'm just saying.
Dee, what?
Right.
There's other jobs that can take this when he steps up for 300.
It's on the website. It's been out there 6 days.
I guess they've just gone off.
Can I send it to you?
How does an appellate, even the appellate court say? I don't know, there's a lot, because he's being sued,
A lot of
you know.
stuff.
Yeah, probably.
that
But it
the
all boils down
She should
to
have
Terry
kids back, you know, even the appeals court, where she didn't do anything wrong, but to lose custody of the kids, just as horrible. Yeah. So what's wrong with even the appellate court, like instead of the?
There's some toll free books, Tom, excuse me, Psalm 91 books.
Okay.
Free in the back, the word from the foundation, 1687 foundation. This is lots of stories, people
There it is.
using God and the angels on your behalf.
You're right, yeah.
Psalm
You have
91,
five kids,
and
and
some life stories.
she was five.
Page 129, 120, 138, two good ones in the
That's
top.
a short one.
It was weird.
Okay, that's a short one.
Yeah, that's a seat club.
All right.
Horrific?
Club?
I try not to close the
Oh, where are you?
Secret chapters.
Okay, you guys, we're ready to start this. I, as the campaign manager, made the executive decision to show this first, to show the Lion News in keeping with, just with the story of sharing her arrest.
Let me get out of the
This
way.
is what's out.
I've seen
He's
it
an
100 times.
independent
It's sad.
blogger, journalist.
And it's your husband, it's gotta make you
He has
sick.
Lion News. He's a great advocate. He films.
Who's this?
You turn it up. Louder, please.
We don't have speakers.
Is this in the morning or night?
What I believe is the order that you're talking about on page 23 of the transcript. I will also email that to you today. You've also requested pictures that were on the phone that was the subject of this criminal charge. I don't have them. I never had them. They were never downloaded off of the camera. And as you've probably seen from the order that I have sent you in the past, the camera's been returned. So I can't do anything on that. You've also requested some video surveillance.
I'm a judge, so I'm not going to follow proper procedure, play by the rules, obey the laws, am I?
It's my belief that that is not public data. And the only way I would be able to turn it over to you is by court order. The video captures various other civil proceedings in the courthouse that are not related to this criminal charge. And based on that, I think it's not private data or not public data under Minnesota data practices. And if you are able to obtain a court order, I will certainly give it to you. I have it, I'll preserve it, but I will not give it to you without a court order. And I put all of that together in a letter to you, and I will also email to you. I assume that this should go to your Lions News email address at gmail.com. And I've got other emails from you in the past.
Okay. Well, the only problem is it's criminal investigative data, and you need to redact it. Well, then I guess that's your job, not my job. And I presume, since it's part of a court criminal trial,
It was not presented as evidence in the trial.
well, there was no trial as far as I understand it, because the case was dismissed. I'm saying trial as in court case. So it's, the defense submitted it, you admitted to having it. So that's the thing. Plus, I was also sent.
I had subpoenaed all of the video of the whole courthouse
Personal
those 2 days.
Of the attorney.
Still haven't gotten them all. They use this to prosecute me, that's why I got
that,
this.
so I asked for that also.
You were given that from my response.
Well, I asked,
That was part of the police reports.
I asked for electronic data, you sent me a photocopy, which I did not ask for.
I don't have it in electronic format. I have it in paper. As I had everything else I sent you.
Well, the thing is, I know that this is all electronic data.
Not in the city's possession.
Well, the thing is, you have it stored as electronic data.
I do not have it stored as electronic data.
I didn't say that you did, I'm saying that the city does.
The city does not have it stored as electronic data.
The thing is, you have your deputies who are supposed to preserve the evidence from the camera. It doesn't exist. And all that information, as I...
Camera is not. The deputies don't have the pictures that were taken from this camera. I don't have them. And the city of Hastings does not have them. They were never retrieved off of the camera.
So in other words, I just did the illegal search and didn't bother to do the downloading of the evidence, right?
I disagree with your portrayal of the incident, but yes, they viewed the camera based on the verbal court order. That is all correct. And that was the basis for the judge excluding the camera evidence from the hearing. I agree with you to that extent.
Well, that didn't prevent her from being arrested.
There's not a lot of ways.
And
If you want to talk about anything relating to your data practices request,
I am, I'm speaking to it now. The thing is all that evidence of her being in jail, of her being detained, her being in a wheelchair, in a detention center, obviously was part of the criminal data, was part of your case. There was no court case in the detention center, so obviously I should be able to get that. There's plenty of evidence of those types of videos on the internet. And again, if you need to redact the other information, that video, that's not my problem, that's your problem, because it's your job to redact private from public. So you need to have one of your IT people delete certain aspects of it, well then that's your end of it, not my end of it. Again, you wasted plenty of my time already.
I'm only stating your time. I provided you a data practices request within the time that it was required to be provided.
You did not provide me with all data, and you made the wild and outrageous claim you did provide me with all data.
You like that phrase, don't you?
Yes, I do. And I was subjected to, I'm not
You did not request the things that you asked for in your phone message today.
Well, do I need to hold your hands? I presume you're an adult, you're a licensed attorney. I think you should be able to understand any and all. I'm sure you get data, you get discovery requests that ask for any and all. I'm
But
sure.
in your phone message today, you asked for specific court orders which were not part of your request. So those, in my opinion, are new data requests that you've made today verbally, which probably doesn't count, but I'm going to respond to them anyway.
Well, all I need to do is ask you to submit it, or all I have to do is ask you anyhow. And the point is, I spoke with the mayor.
Yeah, I know, we don't need to get into that.
Well, I was harassed by the mayor. I don't appreciate that. Yes, of course. Well, I'm sure you don't. I'm sure you don't.
Anything else you want to talk about on the data practices request?
Yes, I am not done speaking about this, but you keep interrupting me. You won't let me finish the thought. See, that's real simple. So, the point is, you could have easily sent me this a long time ago.
Okay, you're not asking for more information. I'm going to terminate the call. I will provide you this email before the end of the day. I'm sure you're recording this conversation.
I am.
Now you can do with it what you will.
I will. Thank you. Yeah, bye.
Okay. Any comments on this blind news tape? You need a microphone, or can you speak loudly?
Does anyone have any questions on that? So that's over time, it's very edited, so.
Very edited.
Yeah. mean,
You can see her shoes are on, and then her,
Yeah, true.
you see how they,
I believe it was the
17-minute
reporter
one.
talking with the prosecutor.
Is this Guantanamo?
And that prosecution was unsuccessful.
oh, the next, you mean the 17 minutes? Oh, I thought she was doing the one that shows where they're talking to the prosecutor, the DA.
Well, it depends on whatever, I don't know where that one is, I haven't seen that.
You could.
Dede, do you know where that other one is? It's 17 minutes. Yeah.
Pretty sick.
No.
Are you okay with what?
That's the process they have when you don't resist.
Okay, before this was asked.
When you don't resist. I wasn't resisting arrest. I was in a state of shock.
Yeah, really.
And they could do anything they wanted. Well, you know, I've been asking around, I told Dede this, I've been asking around about rights, you know, and what rights we have, and many of the people say we don't have any rights left. They don't have any rights.
Folks, let me moderate a little bit here while Carrie's setting up the next DVD. So what we have here is Melissa MacDonald running for Minnesota Supreme Court Justice. As a Michelle, I'm sorry, I do that all the time, and I'm terrible with names. Michelle MacDonald, her husband's here, Dede, the campaign manager, discussing also a client and her travails with a court case in family custody. That's not the only one we have in this room dealing with the problems in the state of Minnesota and various district courts. HarvardCountyCorruption.com, Carolyn Rice case, the Leah Bankin-Danowitz case. They still haven't been able to have custody of their children yet. There's also, for those who don't know, there was a tape that was done. Dale Nathan was in the room on other court horror cases. And then Minnesota Injustice, a book written by Dale Nathan, has got a whole listing or plethora of horrible cases, of actual court cases in Minnesota as well. Within our audience right here, our co-founder John Bergen went through 9 attorneys before he fired them all to represent himself to gain custody of his own children, 5 children in a court custody case.
Is he an attorney?
No, he's a businessman. So John has gone through this with 9 attorneys, one after another, not representing him properly to gain back custody of his own children. And that's in his background. Dave Nichols in the audience right here. Dave has got shepherd's level of information. I call it Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 information. Most people know only Tier 2, maybe Tier 3. Tier 3 is, foundational information. Tier 2 is a little bit more knowledge. At Tier 1 level, very few people have that understanding. Dave is one of those people with some Tier 1 knowledge of what is wrong with our court system and how they're working under UCC commercial code rather than the judicial code. Anyways.
And I'm going to say, just from my background of going through juvenile justice, I've shared that with my son. I joined the Juvenile Justice Coalition. All of it's fake. It's all the best practices are being determined at the global level, pushed through our legislators, our rubber stamping. It's all predetermined Agenda 21 principles. Yeah, it's all federal funds. I can show you exactly. And there's grants that nobody's accountable. Like I said, the $28 million one, Dakota County, is for international species and chimpanzee. And it doesn't matter. It's not just our courts. It's through our military. It's through our through all of these people and being connected with so many people, whether they have kids or not. I said, I don't like the word just family, because this isn't just family. No, it's individuals. It's individual rights, liberties. Any of us can be stopped for any reason. They can nail us, jail us.
In July 2012, here, this is now July of 2014, 2 years ago, we had an event here. Dale Nathan asked to host this event, the Black Rope Judicial Mafia event. That's what we have in this room. And so, Orso was here, some representatives, the state senator were here to talk, along with the people, situation in the state of Minnesota. Anyway, Dave, did you want to say something?
I sure do.
Go ahead, Dave, you have a couple minutes, go ahead.
What they're saying here is the effects. What was the cause? Everything is cause and effects in the universe. This is a principle now.
You want the microphone?
So I asked John, and he says, well, he's got no jurisdiction. Well, jurisdiction is the issue, but how do they get jurisdiction? And here's a line out of the Minnesota Legislative Manual. I mused over this for 3 weeks. We the people, thankful to God for all our political and civil rights, in whom all power is inherent. It means you're born with them. You gave them jurisdiction by being there. I'm sorry, lady. The Bible gives you 35 verses that's saying separate yourself. Another verse says stay out of their courts. You are the court. You are the power. Here the government is acknowledging that you've got all the power and you're born with it.
Just don't go there.
This is judgment. You're looking at judgment for doing something wrong. I'm sorry.
Explain the case about the 3 sheriffs.
Pardon me?
About the 3 sheriffs who tried to arrest that.
3 sheriffs that tried to arrest.
We filed the papers and stopped our sheriffs.
Oh, yeah. One of our friends here, Peggy's friends, Patty, came to Patty's door at 7:30 in the morning. They're going to arrest her. She didn't show up for a court date the previous day. Well, I had a copy of the court order because I had visited with her the day before, and I had the judge's name on there, and I called the court and got the judge's fax number. I faxed a 1-pager that says, you're a corporation, you have no authority, get rid of this warrant. That was a week and a half ago. Now we're going back and countersuing them, and we're going to put a $sign on every violation. We don't appeal in their court. It's a company. It's a company store. They make the rules as they go. Now, you folks got a lot of talent, and I hope you'll join us. We need more people in the common law court system. Very few people understand that they have all the rights. I mean, what? I've got rights? You know, we're not trained that way. We're trained to show up at court. We don't show up at court. We file the documents and say we're not coming to court. And then we start invoicing them. And we've got a Wall Street stockbroker that'll take these $1 million judgments and sell them on the stock exchange for 30%, 28%. You know, let's share the wealth. What the heck? I know this is a departure from where you're going, but
I don't think it's a departure at all. You're absolutely right. We're just, you're right.
So didn't the
Stay where you're at and don't go into court.
see, you gave them jurisdiction.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you explain to the court when they
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Well, yeah, what we do is we don't,
Oh,
when
okay.
somebody wants to get a divorce, we say
They
we
always
don't.
refer to you in the all capital letters names. It's the same
We're not-
all capital letters that when
somebody-
they put you in a grave, they put your name on the gravestone
That's what we do.
in all capital letters. So basically what they're telling you is you're a dead man walking. So everything you do is in lowercase, not even the first letter of your name. You say everything in lowercase. And when they address you, you force them to address you in your common law venue, which is General Post Office, General Brewery. And then we file under the UCC. And I don't know, it's working, folks.
Yeah.
We're
John
kind of learning
Miser's
as we
out there.
go,
You know who
but,
John Miser is?
We talked about that, though. He will.
He will.
I don't know, is there any questions that I can
Dave, why don't I introduce you this way? Dave Nichols, as well as a Jack Fallon in St. Paul. Dave's in the Rosemont area. And they got connected as a result of having Jack speak a couple times in the last year and a half. And Dave's spoken here, and he admits he's not a great speaker. But the information that they gathered together is at this shepherd's level of understanding why we're so askew and not going through the court system because it's underneath their jurisdictional control, and we're not going to get justice in that system, period.
Okay, John addressed this the other day, as Deuteronomy 28. Their purpose is to violate us under God's orders, really, to turn our heads back to our God-given capacity. The same thing happened with Moses and Aaron. Moses left town to go to the mountain, and the people are so used to a graven image that they formed a golden calf, right?
Well,
and that's what we're involved in here. We're worshiping a golden calf, and it took them 40 years to get through the wilderness. And you know what they did?
Do you have a video now, Michelle?
Can you?
Hold it for a
They
second.
tried to fight the enemy by themselves. And as soon as they did, they started losing. And when Aaron lifted his hands toward God, what happened? He prevailed. And in fact, he had to get his buddies to hold his arms up there.
Moses.
No, it was Aaron. Aaron never crossed the Red Sea. It was Aaron that,
I've been there.
pardon me?
I was been there. I've been on my side.
Okay. Did you see the golden calf?
It's there.
Anyways, in the last 2 years, there's been people, a lot of people you may know that have gone through foreclosures. More children that are being separated from their parents. And there are people being ticketed all the time through what Sheriff Richard Mack says is citation, taxation through citation. And that's why you got so many deputies on the road and so many state troopers, because they heard on the radio this last weekend, for the next 2.5 weeks, they're going to have even more out there in force. And they say for the purposes of protecting the public from drunken drivers. But that's not what the reason is. The reason is they're out there to write more citations and collect more revenues. That's the real underlying reason, as you know.
I call them glorified meter maids.
Right.
We're ready with the video.
How long is this video?
It's maybe 5 minutes.
Why don't we watch the video, and then we'll follow up afterwards. The light switch here, just on the light. There you go.
I need to end the video.
So you named her? Liberty Rose Elizabeth Montgomery.
Make it louder.
I tried. And it worked. Now go over there with her. I know you my pretty little baby. We're going to touch your marathon when you were watching this?
My first time experiencing all of it.
Okay. Yeah, she has Liberty Rose Elizabeth Montgomery.
We're at Abolish. I have spoken to him since the time to Liberty Rose. I do. Doesn't authorize me to any if nothing bothers me. And that's not my time. So you talked to him about this case? Yes. You talked to him about this case and he said, put it in the police, put it in the call, and you want to take the baby for 72 hours? Correct. So definitely be evicted. I am it's to talk to them.
Courts need to go ASAP.
It's my kid, it's my choice, but then I still sit here on October 5th, and I had my baby on the 1st. We're a full-term healthy baby. Okay, thanks. Kids are bullshit. They're bullshit. It's not even bullshit to me. It's your kid, it's your choice. I thought that's what it meant, but I guess it's not. Why is that? Because my baby is being held there for no medical reason, and no county jurisdiction has been submitted. So there isn't even a hold from Hennepin County yet, and I have no rights to my child at all, and I can't be kicked out of this hospital. Actually, that's wrong. You have every right to your child. They're just pretending that you don't.
This? Alright. Did you guys just take the Guilfoyle baby? You guys just take the Guilfoyle baby? Okay. I can record you. Did you just say, I'm going to show you Michelle MacDonald. Did you just take the Guilfoyle baby?
I'm not saying anything as long as it's
Because I have a federal lawsuit here. So if you're part of this, okay, you just took the Guilfoyle baby?
I'm not saying anything as long as I'm being recorded, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, where's Miss Guilfoyle right now?
That's for you now.
Okay. Yeah, can you find her for me? Because I'm on team and you're supposed to wait for me. The hospital staff assured me that you would. So. Excuse me, but did you just take the Guilfoyle baby?
I served court order, yes.
Where's the mother?
She's been driving around here.
I was promised, because I have a federal lawsuit against this hospital and against all involved, including the county, because that baby was taken unlawfully. So I was promised that I would be able to be here before you took the baby.
I don't know who you spoke to.
Well, Ariana Guilfoyle was on the phone with me, okay? And what is your name and badge number?
My name is Deputy Christopherson.
And your badge number?
449.
Okay. And I have a federal lawsuit here that I served.
I'm not aware of the background. I'm giving a court order.
Well, you're going to have to start listening to background, because the baby has been taken unlawfully. There's no drugs in
We
that
have no
baby's
way of
system.
knowing all of the history on all of the cases on the paper.
You got to start finding out, because
good night, ma'am.
people don't. Okay, where's Ms. Guilfoyle?
You have to call her.
Yeah, did you arrest her? Where's Ms. Guilfoyle? Oh, okay. Hey, sweetie. Here. I'm gonna get to the bottom of this, okay? We're gonna go somewhere. Okay. All right. We're gonna go somewhere, sweetie. You're right. Okay. This is my husband. He was right, wasn't he? What did you say? What did you say? God told him this, okay?
I said, God, the devil is here.
The
devil is right here.
When they first told me to say yes, when they came to the social worker said, hey, I had to call on you. It was Thursday. They called Wednesday. I said, why didn't you tell me so I could call my lawyer? I said, I'm not mad at you. You should have just informed me. And then as soon as she left, not more than 60 seconds later, a priest knocked on the door and gave me my communion. And I told Michelle, I said, that ain't the devil leaving to let God in. That's, oh my God.
Is this from Ms. Guilfoyle? Yes. Okay. Where's the baby? Where's the baby? Okay. Where's the baby right now? I just filed a federal civil rights lawsuit, and Children's Hospital was included in that lawsuit because there's no reason for you to take the baby. Not one reason. Okay? I'm gonna get my badge and I want to go up and see this baby. As I'm the baby's lawyer, so I get to see the baby. I have it on video and on tape. What Chisago County did. They came here, and you know what they said? They said, this is all a big mistake, we're going home, and we have no jurisdiction, and we made a big mistake. And then what do they do on Monday, after I filed the federal lawsuit? They make up a case. And I have the papers that they sent me, and there's no case. So, just so you know, okay, you're all involved. I have a security video, so I know all the people that went and took that baby. Wrongly.
So you shouldn't just follow orders blindly. You have to really talk to people, all right? So are you saying once again, I can't see this baby? Are they blocking you from seeing the baby? Basically? Basically, you're blocking me.
Sometimes you say the times, man, I'm not gonna continue to tell you.
Okay. All right, and what's your name? Officer Dan Price, and I talked to you a little bit. You just did made a big mistake. I'm just telling you, a huge mistake. You said you were going to call me, and you didn't. You said, sir, you were going to call me, and you didn't. Today, you bold-faced lied. After I served a federal lawsuit, and you're walking away from it. Okay, did you get that federal lawsuit today? Did you not tell me that you were going to tell me? Did you not tell me that you were going to tell me? If this happened, you knew it was going to happen all along, sir. Did you know this was going to happen today? When you lied to me and told me that you would call me? Actually, it wasn't you, it was your associate.
You're authorized.
Can I please see the baby? Is the baby still in there?
You need to leave now.
Is the baby still in there?
You need to leave now, or
I'm the baby's attorney. I'm the baby's attorney.
I'm full of dispatch.
Okay, that can be out. I'm the baby's lawyer, and I don't seem to care. Want to escort me down? Want to escort me? Make sure I leave this time. This is called being mindless and stealing things. And this is proving being totally mindless. Just as those people know, I got a lawyer and talked to him today. He said he wouldn't do this. There's all a trick and a scheme and a plan, and that baby is perfectly safe, and they know it. I got the conspiracy up there. Watching, and that video was done by We Are Change, Tim Watts.
Why was the baby in the hospital?
She had just given birth. Well, she has her baby back. Oh yeah, she got her baby back, because she had me as her lawyer. So, yeah, and baby Liberty Rose, and I'm going to be the baby's godmother. So I'm excited about that.
How long did it take to get the baby out?
What happened was, they ended up, CPS took the baby. I went to several court hearings there. Sandra Grazzini-Rucki was the advocate and came to the court hearings with me to support Ariana. And then on January 31st, they dismissed the whole thing. So it took from October 1st, the baby was born. I think the baby was taken October 7th. And to January 31st, she got her baby back. Nothing. They didn't offer any services. It was just a charade. It was the Mother Baby Center at the Children's Hospital in Minneapolis. Children's Hospital. And so I did have a federal lawsuit on that one, but I got to be so busy that I had to pull back. I don't know if you've all heard about the Peltier case that's happening in Massachusetts.
Yes.
The Peltier. This is like the Peltier case, and that was going on at the same time. And so I did have to pull back because I was too busy, but I dismissed it without prejudice so I can bring the case back again. So I'll be needing support probably from other attorneys to do that.
I listen to Glenn Beck a lot. I watch him and watch the Blaze, and he talked about, Glenn Beck is on 11:30 a.m. radio every morning at 9 in the morning, a couple hours, and he's brought cases to the attention of the people that watching, and because of the Peltier case, which was a young woman or a young girl that was brought to the hospital, it was a children's hospital in Boston, that she had a disease that they did not recognize, but it was a rare disease, I don't know the name of, but she went continually downhill, and she was restricted. She wanted to see her parents, they would not let her. They kept her, I don't know how long. They tried all sorts of methods, court and everything, nothing worked, and finally was brought to the attention of Glenn Beck's show, and he, through talking about it, he found a lawyer that would take the case, and the pressure that was put on the hospital through all the people, she finally has been released. And it was, I saw it on TV. And that is not the only time. Now they have also now what they're doing is working to collect money to help the children that are coming across the border. Not that they're saying we should just welcome them all in, but we need to take care of them, at least some of their needs. Meanwhile, and he's collected about, what was it? It was $700,000 yesterday, but then today, I think he said they had collected $1.9 million, and they're now reaching for $2 million, and he's going to go to the border. You know, they do not allow pictures to be taken. They're not to talk to the media, and the media doesn't come there anyway, because this is a plan. This is a planned thing. But I was thinking about the case with you and Sandra, and I thought, if he could bring it to Glenn Beck, and he could, because I've heard similar things. This is really outstanding what you and she are going through. And the people that are supporting are really wonderful, you know, to get in there and I think that's what we need, is people to stand up and say, and take a stand. Like they did in Marietta, California, when they dropped these people that come from oppressed countries, and yes, they're in dire straits when they send their children over, but we also have many needs. We just can't have it. There was no end to it. Obama isn't stopping it. So the Marietta people, they stood up and they said, no, stop it. And they did stop the planes from coming, and they are doing it in other states too, I've heard. So it does pay for us to stand up and speak and not be so politically correct.
Ma'am, are you a guest tonight?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you just found out about us through...
Ralph Camp, actually.
Ralph, okay, great, Ralph.
Yeah.
I hope you come back again.
Thank you. Yeah, we have attended the one in, well, we live in Bloomington, but we attended the one in Chanhassen, but we haven't been able to be regular yet, unfortunately, but
Good.
we wanted to come here because...
Local, backyard.
Yeah, we live in Bloomington, so...
Very good, okay. So, yeah, we are the people of Bloomington, Edina, Richfield Tea Party along 494, 62 cross county east and west. So just south of Minneapolis. Minneapolis, the Southwest Metro Tea Party, I'm familiar with them, two founders, and Cindy Pugh and Mariana Sue, Savannah, which is the daughter of Von Clayton. And I had my friend from Chaska merge his Tea Party group with Chanhassen because he only had 5 or 10 people there, and that's Gary Hoff, who was a volunteer for us in Justice in Minnesota as a webmaster. Anyways, we're glad to hear in about 10, 12 minutes from now, Caroline Johnson will be here. Meanwhile, we can have a roundtable discussion, some lightning quick questions as far as how do we make justice work for us? That's the title, supposedly, for our event tonight. There has been winning situations, just want to know. So we haven't always been on the back end of being burnt. There have been people among us who've actually won. Dave Nichols is familiar with Jack Bellin, about several people that were going through foreclosure, losing their houses. But instead of losing their houses, they got to keep their houses and attacking correctly and preserving the rights. John Bergen goes all the way back to the 1960s. It was called a Credit River case, which is under court seal. And that one was against a mortgage company that was fraudulent in dealing with the Federal Reserve being used to pay off loans and the mortgage notes being fraudulent to begin with as the underlying fault. And that was won victoriously on our side, initiated by Jerome Daley, who seems passed away. The same man who also worked in a lawsuit against John F. Kennedy, who talked to his father, Joseph Kennedy, and says, is this true or false? Which learned that it is true, that the Federal Reserve notes are faulty. And then we have an executive order never rescinded, U.S. dollars backed by silver certificates that were issued and that were printed. And that's never rescinded. We're right here in Minnesota. We also have cases where, go ahead, Dorothy, you want to say something?
I just wondered, excuse me, that since Michelle is here tonight, is there any chance that she could answer questions or say a little bit more?
Yes, we would like to have her. Where is she? She's sitting over there
Michelle,
with...
I think there's some of us that have questions for her.
Pick up the microphone, Michelle, if you would. We have a few more minutes. Do we have in the audience, raise some hands, who wants to make a comment or ask questions to Michelle while she's still here? Questions for Michelle, please raise your hands. Comments for Michelle? Well, we have one so far, and two. So Fleming?
Well, it's Fowling.
Great. Fowling, I'm sorry.
I'm Fowling with Stens. I guess my question for you would be, obviously you've been through quite a bit an ordeal here, and standing tall for citizens on many different fronts, nonprofit, and in the case that I heard earlier tonight too. What is it that we can do on a unified message to do something that's it's going to be significant, that can reverse the roles? Do you understand that question, I guess?
In sort of, I think from my perspective at this very moment, vote for me for your Minnesota Supreme Court Justice, because it's the highest court in our state, and I can police what's going on underneath me with the judges.
Okay, what kind of things do you need done to win?
Well, first of all, I guess a watchdog is always really important to have. There's no doubt about that, and for changes at the Supreme Court and what you can do. A lot of times the people just don't simply know what to do. They feel that how is it that basically how is it that we can get you over the edge? Kind of like with you, maybe you can share a little bit with the angst at the convention of why the Republican Party was so opposed to you to even speak. I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
It wasn't that they were opposed to have me speak because I was on the schedule to speak. Overall, I think there's a aversion to having judges be voted in. They like the appointment system, which, that answers it. The U.S. Senator, remember when Senator Wellstone died and they had to appoint a U.S. Senator? They could be doing that with our U.S. Senators on a regular basis. That's how serious a violation it is to on a regular basis have judges, and I promise I won't do this, step down a little bit earlier than their term because they decide not to be a judge anymore and allow whoever is in office
to appoint, and then they run as an incumbent. That's why I'm learning only 2% of judges are running opposed.
That's all?
2%,
Only
that's all.
2%.
In other states, they wouldn't hear of this. Minnesota has just, it's part of our culture, it's part of what's common here.
The serial appointment system is what de facto in practice, and the judicial canon rules.
Well,
Part of the
okay,
problem.
okay, and then I guess the last thing would be is, we here as a group here, obviously, I guess I'll speak for myself, but I would be supportive of you. And I guess the other thing would be is to get, neighbor to neighbor to talk about MacDonald versus, who's your opponent, by the way?
David Littlehoff.
So that's just important to know, I guess, because that's where, we're all pulling the lever down, and getting that out there, I guess, so.
He's been around.
One thing we're planning on doing is that many people do not know the names of Supreme Court judges. So I'll put my name out there, Michelle MacDonald, Michelle MacDonald, Michelle MacDonald. In October, with assistance, and we'll need funds for this, we are going to start with the billboards and signs.
Bumper stickers.
So bumper stickers, billboards, signs, and and actually Arla knows more about exactly where we need to target. Because it's a statewide campaign, we need to target certain areas. And I think I'm scheduled to speak at the judicial districts, and there are about, how many judicial districts are there? Arla's here.
There's 10.
Airline.
Airline.
Yes.
Airline. I call him my air, the air that I breathe. Air's here. So,
That's a question.
I think there was one other question, John, and then you had a question as well.
You're dealing with the courts. Don't go into the courts that you've been going into. There's no justice there. The highest court is a court of public opinion. What you said here this evening, what we've all seen here, I'll guarantee you we will get out there. And we can take this information with what we're going to be doing over here. You're going to see tremendous changes in the system. But I recommend to everyone to read what God gave to Moses, the 28th chapter of Deuteronomy. If you live a righteous life, which I feel we are here, this is a righteous life, you'll get all the blessings that God gives, not man. You get rain in due season, healthy food, healthy cattle, healthy people, and peace in your city. That includes your schools, your hospitals, everything else. And no nation can come against you because you'll have angelic protection. Now, if you don't live a righteous life, like Sodom and Gomorrah, you won't get the rain. Los Angeles is not getting much rain in Sodom and Gomorrah in Los Angeles. You won't have healthy food. You get GMO food. You won't have healthy cattle. They're recalling all kinds of red meat all over this country right now, unfit to eat. And rather than peace in your cities, you'll have Boston bombers. The reason? They have closed 58 Catholic churches in Boston because of child pedophile lawsuits. There's a lot more to that story. But the most important part of the Deuteronomy 28 is verse 43. If you're living like hell on earth, a stranger comes into your land. He becomes the head, you become the tail. He will lend to you, you will not lend to him. That's a perfect description of the German Federal Reserve Corporation called the Federal Reserve curse. It is not a bank. And bankers say this. Myron Schwarzenegger said, I don't care who makes your laws, I don't care who your judges are. If I control the currency for that country, I will rule it. That's your enemy. Satan controls planet Earth, but people thinking they have money in the bank. All they have is fiat, worth nothing. So given your husband the Constitution, Article in Section 10, it says very plainly, all states must pay their debts in silver and gold coins, not fiat. The bank attorney, Karen Hughes, for the World Bank, you can look her up. I've talked to her back and forth. She said for 20 years she was the senior attorney at the World Bank. She found inequities. She told them about it. They fired her. Now she is the World Bank whistleblower. Listen to Karen Hughes. Whistleblower, here's what she said. All the banks in the world are handling fiat, nice word for counterfeit. They are all broke. All nations are existing on fiat. They are all broke. Now, the rest of the story, I'm not going to talk much longer. John Kennedy, when we sued him and the Congress, Secretary of the Treasury and the Federal Reserve Bank in '63, JFK woke up and did a great thing. He took out his pen, Executive Order 11110, put over $4 billion of U.S. notes with red seals backed by silver. Then if you look on the internet, thefreeingofhumanity.com, you see JFK riding in a car with Sukarno from Indonesia. Sukarno had over 90% of the world's gold, 5 stories underground. He sold spices for gold, spices for gold. And they were going to put out gold-backed currency for the whole world. And when you look up the Freedom of Humanity, you see Sukarno's son signing your brand new gold-backed United States security notes. Whoever has the gold will make the laws.
So live a righteous life.
That's it.
It's a good wisdom.
I know we're really short on time. I was concerned about how did that baby get involved in their hospital trying to steal a baby? Was it because of drugs, or were their mother and father fighting?
There was no reason. She was on WIC, so she was on assistance. Basically. Oh, and the father was in jail. So she gave birth, and some part of that video, you couldn't hear it very well, is when she was accosted by the child protection worker, and I was there, and they said it was all a big mistake, basically, and they went home. But of course, the county attorney still pursued it, because they have to, once they start something, they never want to say that they made a mistake. I just wanted to add one more thing, and this is probably the most important of anything, that we need to pray. We need to pray and stand behind you and your assistant as well, and Sandy, and all the people that have and are going through all these awful trials. And because if we don't pray, if we don't have God behind us, we might as well just give up.
That's right. I agree. Right.
Is there a special group that's backing your opponent? Unions or something like that? Do you have any idea?
No, it doesn't work that way.
Last I heard, he had raised $50,000, so.
She's running against the incumbent, running for re-election, and the incumbents win almost all the time. And so therefore, she's challenging an incumbent. How often does that happen? Less than 2%.
When you talk about prayer, I learned several months after I met Sandra that she had taken a flight. She lost her children in September, and she had taken a flight to the Vatican. It was her first time there. She rarely got that flight. And for Christmas, she was praying for a miracle, and she met me January 1. So we talk about that. And I was raised Catholic, as was my husband. We go to a non-denominational Christian church right now, but she was also raised Catholic.
Caroline is here now. How do you want to do this? Because you want to take a synopsis or cover some things?
I could just cover a couple of things, yeah.
There you
I mean,
go.
I
We
don't
come back
want to take
another
much time, yeah. I
We're
mean,
we're at the end, socializing almost. Here's a microphone.
Yeah, hey, thanks a lot. I want to.
This is Erlon Johnson, who is our primary guest speaker that delayed his entry because of a conflicting work schedule now.
Because he went roller skating.
I just started a new job
But in the
and so
meantime,
we got to try to.
Erlon for a few minutes while we're all attentive before we disperse, and then after he's done, there may be some quick announcements. Anybody want to weigh in on upcoming events before the next monthly meeting? And then also, if you want to stay around and socialize, I'm going to be discussing with Dave a misdemeanor case I have, traffic violation. We're going after them, and we're not playing the game. And so he's already won many cases going through this process, understanding constitutional law. But you're welcome to stick around and listen to us. And I have a file folder with how we're doing things differently. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I apologize for the substitution here, but I knew Michelle was good. Where'd she go? She's over there. I knew Michelle was going to be here anyway, and so I wanted to make sure that she got a chance to talk and answer all your questions. So anyway, what I was going to talk about, there's just three basic things, so make a note of this. The first is Minnesota Statute 169.91, and I invite anybody to look it up. But what it says is, and Michelle's had some, I don't know if you talked about this tonight at all, but she's got some first-hand experience with this statute. What it says is if you've been stopped on the road for any kind of petty misdemeanor, gross misdemeanor, felony, or drunk driving, or what have you, then you can ask to be brought before a judge immediately. And as we know, the district courts are supposed to be open all the time, 24/7. And when I inquired about that, hey, how do I get a hold of this court on the weekend? I mean, come on, we got stuff going on here. And so what they told me was you could fax it in. Great, I can fax my petition, a petition for the writ of habeas corpus on Saturday morning, and the judge is going to see it. No, only the cops can call judges. They have their phone numbers. And I'm tying this all together. I don't mean get off on tangents, but we went over to Egan and talked to the cops Saturday morning. How do we get my son's buddy out of jail? Well, and he starts giving us the normal way of doing it. Well, you go pay bail, you do this, you do that. Well, you talked to the judge just this morning, and he's been sitting there overnight. Okay, so give me the judge's number. Oh, no, we can't do that. You call him, I want his phone number. That's right. Give me his phone, so no. But here's, and I want you to think about this. What's the purpose of Minnesota Statute 169.91? Why do citizens have the right, protected by statute, to go before a judge right away? Well, let me tell you why. Because the cops are out of control. And do you think that if they rough somebody up on some bogus charge, which almost all of them are, they're going to take somebody in front of a judge? No, it better be real if you take them in front of the judge. Because if it's not real, you're going to be out of a job. And the point being, you get the point. It's got to be real or forget it. So that's the purpose of that statute. And I'll just comment on Michelle's case in general. The judge ruled that, the state tried to say that there's some other cases on DUI, and there's other procedures for DUI, so 169.91 doesn't necessarily apply. And Judge Metzen, the judge that's been brought out of retirement, so she has what we call negative accountability. Okay, judges in general have zero accountability, but since she's a retired judge, you can't even complain. What are they going to do, fire her? Yeah, go retire again. So it's negative accountability. And she wrote and she said that she brought into the prosecution's argument, well, there's a statute for DUI and that. But okay. All right, let's grant them that for the sake of argument. But what about the petty misdemeanor she was accused of? Speeding. She's got a right to go before a judge on that charge. And what about the obstruction of justice charge? She's got a right to go in front of a judge on that charge. Okay, so you're full of, I can't say. So let's talk about Metzen for a minute here, because this is important. Okay, and Michelle's other case, where it was dismissed because, no probable cause, no evidence, no illegal search. You know, I mean, why can the cops and judges violate the law and the rules? Nothing happens. It's like no big deal. We're supposed to know the law. We're supposed to be experts here, right? No. We got no liability. As a matter of fact, our liability is less than the average citizen. Okay? So here's Judge Metzen. And I can't figure this out. And Michelle, you might have some comments on this, but there's a Rule 6 of the Rules of Criminal Procedure that says you cannot arrest anybody for a misdemeanor unless, and there's only 3 reasons, and the reasons are if they're going to hurt themselves or others, continue to commit a crime, or not likely to show up in court. Now, they brought that up in Michelle's case because they arrested her on a misdemeanor, okay? They arrested my wife on a misdemeanor, and they brought her to jail. It totally violates the law because, frankly, the rules are the equivalent of law. And this is important because, like I said, you're freaking depriving people of liberty here. You're arresting people. And so it gets a little crazy, but it gets better. Okay, so in Michelle's case, they never articulated why any of these reasons, okay? But it gets good, and this is Rule 6. And what it says is you have to make this determination before you arrest somebody, okay? I can issue a citation, but if I'm going to arrest somebody, I got to make this determination. I got to articulate it somewhere, okay? All right, now, once you're arrested, okay, now you got to go through the process again. Are they going to continue to commit a crime? Are they unlikely to show up in court? Are they going to hurt themselves or others? All right. So then, they go over to Dakota County Jail. And, of course, they're Pontius Pilate over there. Oh, we'll take anybody they bring in. We don't care. Bring them on! It's all a party here. We can abuse people. We love it because we're freaking sadistic and psychotic and we're sociopaths and psychopaths and any kind of path that you want to go down, but that's the wrong path. Okay. So we get to jail. And guess what? According to Rule 6, the jail has to do the same articulation. They're going to commit a crime, continue to commit a crime? Probably not. They're in jail. Are they going to hurt themselves or others? Or are they unlikely to show up in court? Okay? Now, it gets even better. Can it get even better? Yes, it can. And here's the coup de grace on this program. If the jail keeps you, they have to file a report with the court. They have to file and articulate these reasons. Well, let me ask you this question. How many times in each of Minnesota's 87 counties is this being violated each and every day? Anybody got some guesses?
Too big of a number.
Thousands! Every single day they're violating the law and the rules. Okay, so I went over to Dakota County. I'm talking to the county attorney, getting a little data requests in, And she says that, you got to talk to the Burnsville police about that. Well, what? But wait a minute. Rule 6 says you got to file a report. That doesn't alleviate you of that responsibility. So don't be doing the Pontius Pilate on me here, okay? Take responsibility for your actions.
That's your responsibility to make them responsible.
Well, of course it is, and that's why I'm sharing this with you. I'm setting it up, Dave. I'm setting it up. I'm setting it up, okay? We're getting it teed up. Then we're going to swat that ball out of the park. Okay, so here we go. Hey, it doesn't absolve your responsibility. So we talk about that a little bit, but they're trying to say, again, talk to the Burnsville police. All right, I tell you what, let's just quit arguing about it. Just send me a copy of the report. Send it to me. Because we never got it. Of course, I knew it didn't exist. Oh, send me the one out of your files. So I got it in writing, that report. There's no report file. So we're bringing it back to Michelle now, okay? And so here's what Judge Metzen ruled. Okay, now I want you to listen closely to this logic, okay? So Judge Metzen said, yes, we're going to arrest Michelle. They did violate Rule 6, but it was her fault. Okay, now, I mean, what? What? What?
It's the victim's fault, huh?
It's the victim. Okay, yeah. Carrie killed her boyfriend. Yes, he did, but it was his fault. It's the same logic. And you got this judge that supposedly retired, had a huge legal career, coming up with this kind of baloney?
Sort of scary, isn't it?
It's terrible. I mean, what on earth? This logic, and you better call her out in court because that's just crap. That's just, I don't want to use foul language. I do want to use foul language, but I shouldn't. Okay, I'm going to try and rise above it. Okay, so those are some, now one final comment then. Another statute you all need to write down is 481.10. And what that says is that any time that you are arrested or anything happens to you like that, you have the ability to ask for an attorney or counsel. And it's not qualified. And then it even says in there, counsel or anyone that you choose to talk to. And this is huge. This is huge. Okay? And nobody's aware of that either. Nobody's aware of Rule 6, you know, so we're raising the awareness level because we're pushing it, you know, in all the opportunities we can. All right? But 481.10, that is really good too, because guess what? Now, we all got nice little lawsuits, but here's what you do. Here's what you do. So anytime you get arrested, you ask for an attorney. I want to see counsel right now. And my son did it. I did it. You know, we're all doing that, okay? Because that's what we need to do. And so if they don't give you counsel, it's a $100 civil fine every time they don't. Okay? And I talked to my state senator, and I said, you know, this statute's been on the books since 1877. So we're talking 125 plus years. And if they don't give you, if they don't vindicate your right, Jimmy, you gotta get back here, this is important. If they don't vindicate your right for an attorney, it's a crime, it's a misdemeanor. Now, let me ask you this, how many times, excuse me, in the 125-year history of this law, do you think that there's been misdemeanor charges filed against anybody? You say 2?
Zilch.
Zilch? Who else? Who else? Going to take a guess.
You're 2.
No, they didn't file any crime, so you're right, 0. What the, we gotta push it, come on. You gotta be filing criminal complaints, the whole bit. But one guy in jail actually filed a claim in small claims court for $400 because they didn't vindicate his right to call his attorney from jail to work on some appeal. And the conciliation court awarded him $400. Then they appealed it to district court, and I think they ruled against him for some reason because they're all in cahoots working together. Then he brought it up to the appellate court, and Peter Erlander, anybody heard of him? He was a law professor over at William Mitchell, and Peter Erlander, he's written a treatise on the statute, you know, vindicating your right for an attorney. It was published in 1980. I have a copy, or you can Google it, you know, look it up on the internet. Very, very nice read. He details this whole case and what happened. And so it was pretty good. And the guy won. He ended up winning in appeals, but then guess what? Corrections went and got the law tweaked, say to exempt them, you know. Correction. But the cops, they're idiots. They're supposed to know
Did you get
the
the
law.
$400 or not?
No, he did not. It got reversed somehow along the way, and then he didn't get the
I'll tell you
$400.
why it's reversed.
Well, yeah, you can.
We're getting your dog and pony show here. Pretty good, pretty clear. You're a good presenter.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Well,
Now we need some remedy.
Well, you'll have your chance to give your remedy, you know, and that's fine. So I'm just telling you what's going on here, what laws you can use that are on the books right now, because you got to make them follow the rules. How can they not follow the rules? They got to follow the rules.
They don't have
Because
to
they
follow the rules.
can, that's my.
Well, because they can.
And they will.
They do have to follow their own rules, and you have to make them. Well, then, if they don't, then why do we? Because they got guns?
Because they got the power and they've got.
If you don't know how to handle it.
Because
Well,
they're evil and you're not.
Well, yeah, they're evil and we're not. You're going to get your chance, Dave, but the law says this, and they got to follow it, and they're idiots and they don't.
They don't.
I know they don't, but they're supposed to, and we got to make them. That's my point. All right, that's all I got to say. Any questions?
Repeat those 3 points real quick. Minnesota statute 169.91.
Rules of criminal procedures, number 6.
What was that number again? 16919?
No, 169.91.
91.
Minnesota statute 481.10, and the Minnesota Rural Criminal Procedure 6. I know you got your opinion, Dave, but you know what? You gotta, if they don't have to follow the rules, then why do we? So I'm gonna quit following them.
Well, they're gonna.
So, any questions? Other than you, just hang on.
You don't want to hear from me.
No, I didn't say I don't want to, but I'm just saying.
And I have a different.
Did you have a question?
Oh, I got an answer.
Or are you going to beat me up? You got an answer. Well, you've spoken here before. You can come up after me and speak. Give us the answer.
All right.
I mean, it's up to... Okay, any questions? Questions?
I don't have a question.
Yes, sir.
You said you could hurt yourself or hurt somebody else. One is that you won't show up at the court, or what's the third one?
The third one is you're going to continue to commit a crime. But here, I mean, here's the thing. Now, prosecutors, city prosecutors, are just, all they are is appendages of the cops, and the judges are working hand in hand with them, it seems like, because you can't hardly get anything accomplished, and Dave's going to have the answer for us here. But the point I want to make is that, what was the point? It had something to do with, help me out here,
I
people.
remember, what were we?
So no, the city prosecutor, so what they said in my wife's case is, well, the fact that she was arrested means she's not likely to show up in court.
Oh.
I mean, that's the kind of logic they're using, and what, are you a licensed attorney? You went to college for 4 years to write that? Oh, and then you went another 3 years of law school to write that? And the judges are putting up with that? Come on.
It's a sham.
Well, it's a lack of logic.
Right on. Did you have a question, sir?
No, I was going to comment just though for, I like your style actually, and I think it's important, like you just mentioned, if you are apprehended or whatever the case may be, that you do have your rights.
Well, you got,
and you know what, you got to fight for them.
You have to fight for them, because if you don't, you won't get them. And even if you fight for them, you won't get them. And I could share some more stuff with you there, but yes. 0.
Say, Arlen, I think it's the judges that are telling them what to say.
Well, who knows, man? They're all mannequins in there. You go in there and you go in there and you go, I can't believe this, because everybody's going, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I plead guilty. Well, you have a right to a trial, either from a jury and they have to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, yada yada, blah blah, this, that, and the next thing. But as soon as you say, I'm going to exercise my rights, I'm waiving none of them, I want a jury trial, I want a speedy trial. Whoa, time out, man. Come on. Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't really mean that. You don't get that. What's wrong with you? You either fall in line like everybody else, or you're out of here. I'll be escorted out of here by the deputy sheriffs.
Deputy dog.
Okay, go ahead. Anybody?
I was going to segue to George here, but in your case that you got going on?
Yeah, we're going to have that deleted from the tape, by the way, just so you know.